This is Jason from Laundry List, and today we are here with a special guest, the Mayor of Northampton. Just let me know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. This is Mayor Sciarra. Is that right?
That's I say Sciarra, but
Sciarra,
Sciarra
okay.
is also about as close as you can get, so well done.
All right, so Mayor Sciarra is up for re-election.
I am.
The election is next week.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I'm excited about is I could talk business all day. And the mayor has agreed to come here. We're going to talk business. From my perspective, a lot of small mom and pop businesses are impacted by the same kinds of decisions that a lot of towns and cities across the country face. Mm-hmm. I believe that whatever is impacting my business based on policy will probably impact other businesses. If you'd like to say anything about like your views of business or the city,
sure.
Have at it.
All right, thank you, Jason. Well, I'm really excited to be here. And one of the things that I love most about Northampton is that we are a community that really embraces small business. I think we believe very strongly in our small independent businesses and have tried very hard to keep downtown for as many local businesses as possible. And, I feel like during the pandemic, we really saw the community pull together and support our local businesses and sort of walk our talk around that.
By the way, there's one other thing that you have in common with this laundromat.
Okay.
So a student named Amrita that graduated a couple years ago from Smith College, which I believe you're an alum.
Yep.
She organized an art show in this laundromat. So what you're seeing over here is the remnants. Most of the we had about 50 pieces from Smith, and most of the students would take their pieces back when they graduated.
Yeah.
But these are the few that are still remaining.
That's so great. There's even one that you're featured in up there.
Yes, actually, the funny thing is that wasn't part of the show. Someone painted that like a year ago and handed it to me.
Oh, so
and I thought, that's amazing.
Well, I love art, and I love finding art in maybe unexpected places. One of the things we've done downtown is we're trying to create more murals and sort of activate and make beautiful spots that you wouldn't think art would be. And so it's really exciting to be here and find art.
As a business owner, one thing that I've noticed, and I've had conversations with other people in town, other small business owners, is business has definitely been down. So I'll go through a pattern that I've experienced.
Okay.
October 2024, so a year ago, for the first time, revenue was down in my laundromat. Mm-hmm. I had been growing for 3 or 4 years, year over year, month over month. Yeah. And October 24, I noticed business was down about 8 or 9%. I didn't think much of it. November, December, January, February, March, April, and May, the exact same pattern. For a laundromat, you can handle that. I mean, we don't love it when our revenue is down, but it's not like I have perishable goods. It's not like I have staff or employees.
Right.
So it just meant that you have less revenue, you make less money. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to know, was it something I was doing? I didn't think it was, because what I noticed was like I have pretty good Google reviews and I wasn't getting negative feedback from customers. So after 7 or 8 or 9 months of this, I participated in a conference call with a marketing expert, and they shared some insight as to like what I might be experiencing. But I'm curious, have you heard of other businesses in town? And I started talking to restaurants, and they were all saying the same thing. Like, they were seeing wild dips in their business, and it was hard to predict. One day it would be great, the next day it would just be way down. Have you heard any of that in town, or have you heard anything about how businesses are sort of experiencing these weird cycles?
I have, and I've also read a lot of articles about, particularly restaurants. Costs have really gone up, and I think people's habits have changed. You were talking about a year ago, so last October. I remember. Well,
that's when it started. Like that's when I noticed that it started. Yeah.
But I feel like I was also asking folks about a year ago about just sort of patterns that I was noticing, and what I was hearing from people was just anxiety. So that was right before the presidential election. And a lot of people were feeling very anxious and unsure about what was going to happen. And I think that's now continued, right? So there's all sorts of sort of economic uncertainty. And there have been increased costs. So I think, it's really hard to get people out of their homes. Yeah. That's what I found.
At least you came out today to be here.
We came out today. I think part of this is still post-pandemic, but I think there's just For me, I describe it as sort of a generalized anxiety that I think a lot of people feel about our world right now, and also feel about their economic situation, right? And I think,
certainly the greater economy plays into this.
Yes.
What I learned, so I ended up on this call with the marketing person. It was specifically for like laundromats, and their goal was to try to sell us services and marketing. But what they specialized in were things that I'm not really an expert in, but they used geolocations and geofencing through the use of databases that they had with cell phone tracking. And this is what they told me. They said, we need a volunteer. And there was probably 20 of us on the call. I volunteered, and they said, what's your zip code? So I gave them the zip code of Northampton and my business address. And they punch in a few things, and they said, wow, we weren't expecting that. And I said, what? They said, residents in Northampton hasn't really changed much. Like, the population has been about 30,000 for 100 plus years.
Yep, very consistent.
They said, but what we're noticing is visitors to Northampton are down 40%. And I've always felt that my laundromat is a great, and I think laundromats across the country are great barometers of what is happening in real time in a town or a city, in like business in general. Like I always feel like Wall Street is looking in the rearview mirror when they're looking at analytics. But a laundromat, like for example, when I see a lot of wrinkled, crumpled bills, I know people are hurting because they put these wrinkled, crumpled bills from pockets that they're finding that they're desperate to like grab money from anywhere. When there's new people moving into town, I tend to know about it because they come into a laundromat. When there's visitors in town, and which by the way, I've noticed, like I've owned a laundromat for 7 years. And what I've noticed is in the 7 years, I would say 20 to 30% of my business is visitors. People passing through, staying with friends, whatever it is. And in the summer, it tends to be even higher, like closer to 40, 50% because visitors come in and locals tend to travel. And so when I started seeing that the number was down 40%, it all started to make sense to me. I've been hearing the same thing from like other businesses that may not have their finger on the pulse of their customers as much as I'm pretty hyper intensive when it comes to like understanding my business. And so with the 40% down, it made me realize that something was happening in Northampton, or I thought something might be happening. And I was happy it wasn't me, but then I was a little sad that it's not something I can immediately fix. What I noticed in the summer, starting in June, July, August, business was back up again. And other restaurants said the same thing. They said, oh, the month of July actually was the best month of the year so far. I'm just wondering, as the mayor, were you aware that visitors, at least based on the information I had, which, take it with a grain of salt, but visitors were down 40%. What can we do to try to increase the visitors coming to our town? Because I do think it has a big impact on our businesses.
So I wasn't aware of that statistic. It's interesting because I feel like I've heard other statistics, particularly coming from like the chamber, that outside visitors have been up. So and a lot of the marketing they do is to like Albany and sort of outside of our area to bring people in, and then that's been successful. So it's interesting to hear that. I'm definitely heartened to hear that it went up in the summer. And, we try really hard in the summer to activate a lot of our spaces and to...
Well, whatever you did then, keep doing it now.
Well, I mean, it's outdoor dining. We have salsa in the park. We have DJs in the park. We have bands on Brewster. We're trying to really bring as many people in the summer as possible and use our beautiful spaces and create spots where people want to come and listen to music and just be downtown. And so that's been really successful. So I'm glad that it felt like...
it definitely seemed to have an impact on certainly my business. I mean, now I've noticed it's gone back down. So the way that I countered it was the only way that I could increase revenue in this laundromat was to either increase prices, which I don't really want to do, or increase my capacity, put in bigger machines. So about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I did put in what you just saw, some big machines.
They're great.
And now I'm noticing revenue is going back up again.
Were they able to give you any more granular data than that? Because I have been curious about whether the impacts of like less Canadian tourism, whether that has impacted Northampton. I don't know if you talked to folks.
They didn't, but what they did do, which made it a little more interesting and into perspective, of the 20 or so of us on the phone call, they then asked for random volunteers in different territories of the U.S. So we had Seattle, Southwest, Arizona, the Southeast, Florida, the middle of the country, New Jersey. And what they found was, on the whole, visitors and movement to different towns and cities was down on average between 15 and 20%. So it's not just Northampton, but they were surprised that our numbers were almost double that. I feel like, yes, there's definitely recessionary or economic factors that are coming into play. I can only go based on the feedback that I'm hearing from friends of mine or people that come into Laundromat, which leads me sort of to the second issue. And by the way, I think there's two issues just in the campaign cycle that, like, for me as a business person, definitely impact me. And I don't feel like anybody's really talking about it that much. One is like, maybe visitors are down to the city, that we need to figure out, you know, if that's actually happening and how to counter that. And then the other is the influx of homeless people into Northampton. And that definitely has an impact, certainly on an unattended laundromat, that has an impact. My friends tell me there's a lot of empty storefronts in Northampton, and they don't like walking every 50 feet and someone's begging them for money. And they're like, and these are people that are in Longmeadow, West Hartford, you know, the sort of, I'd say the 1 hour radius of Northampton. And they're saying, like, why would I ever go back to Northampton? The two things that seem to be correlated based on what my friends are saying is, you know, we've got a community that didn't really grow up here, and now they're having an impact on businesses, and we have visitors that aren't necessarily coming. I don't know if you have any thoughts on those.
I will tell you that there has been an increase in the houseless community, and that's actually not just here in Northampton, it's actually across the country. So there's something called the point in time count that happens every year in January, and there's an attempt across the country to be able to count every person who's houseless. And in Hampshire County, the county that we're in, between 2024 and 2025, we're seeing a 90% increase. And there's increases happening everywhere, but that's the data for Hampshire.
Do you know how that compares to like a national average?
Yeah, there are massive increases everywhere.
To the tune of 90%?
I don't know if it's to the tune of 90%, but huge increases are happening all across the country.
Is there a way to help decrease some of the stuff that happens in Pulaski Park and sort of spills into the businesses? I've had issues in here where people have followed young women that had laundry into the laundromat. They knew they were going to take change out of the change machine. They didn't threaten them, but they intimidated them to giving them money and change. And I would get a text or a phone call, hey, this just happened, you should know this. And it's happening more frequently than I'd like. And it really does impact how people perceive a laundromat, because it's sort of intimidating enough just to be in here. But I can't imagine being a young woman in a laundromat and then having a fairly intimidating figure ask you for money. All I know is the more we have that activity happening in a park, the tougher it's going to be on businesses.
So we've been doing a lot of work in Pulaski Park. So I started the Division of Community Care, which is an unarmed response for folks. You know, one of the sort of groups that they interact with a lot are our unhoused community. And so they are in Pulaski Park multiple times a day. We also have PD, the police department, going through Pulaski Park more. So I think that Pulaski Park I've seen a shift.
Yeah, recently, I'd say in the last month, it's definitely gotten a little better in here.
Yeah, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
You can always call the DCC.
The real issue is I usually have to no trespass them. And I don't know, are they empowered to no trespass people, or do I have to have the police no trespass?
The police.
The third area where I think will definitely have an impact on businesses is the picture Main Street, which has been discussed.
Just a little bit.
I would love to see a new vitalized downtown. There's a couple elements of the plan that I'm not excited about. If visitors to the city are down, let's say 40%, or even if it's 25, 30%, businesses are already under pressure just to dig out of the hole of having fewer people coming into their establishment. Now, if we're going to dig up the road for 3 years, that's going to add an extra layer of challenge for people coming into the city. So let's pretend for a second that the construction phase won't have an impact. On the other side of Picture Main Street, when we have it designed as it's currently designed, what are you envisioning how that helps bring more business to Northampton?
So first of all, we need to talk about the reasons for Picture Main Street, right? Because I think they do negatively impact businesses and impact visitors to Northampton. So the first is safety. We are in the top 5% of accident clusters for the entire state of Massachusetts in our downtown. So it's imperative that we make a change to make our downtown safer.
Is that because of pedestrians or vehicles?
It's pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles. We have lots of accidents that happen on Main Street because it is the widths vary in as depending on which section of Main Street you're on. It's not delineated, so sometimes there are 2 lanes, sometimes there's 1 lane. We have angled parking that's pulling out into oncoming traffic. We have extraordinarily long crosswalks that are really tough for pedestrians, and particularly people with mobility issues.
So it's not people that are putting their hoodies on and crossing the street without looking in either direction, which I see all the time.
I mean, yeah, that's a problem everywhere. But no, it's a whole confluence of different sort of issues that make it a really unsafe situation. We're also going to address a lot of accessibility issues. So our downtown is built into a hill. So we have sections where people are crossing in wheelchairs or with walkers or any other kind of device, and they're tilted, right? You have these really kind of unsafe, weird crossings. Those are all going to be brought up and leveled up. It's all going to be ADA compliant. Our sidewalks are badly in need of being repaired. That is all going to be redone.
Not just in town.
Yes. Oh no, sidewalk. I mean, we're New England.
Right. My wife jokes that I run on a treadmill, and she can't understand how I love running on a treadmill. I hate running anyway, but I do it. And I always tell her, like, I can't run on the sidewalks. I'm going to trip and fall. That's why I don't ever run outside. But
yeah,
anyway.
So we're working really hard on trying to do as much sidewalk repair as we can. I've actually increased the funding for sidewalks 5-fold since I've been mayor to try and address all of the deferred maintenance. But road paving and sidewalks are incredibly expensive, and we do as many of them as we possibly can. And I've increased all of that funding because I know that it's a need. This is a beautiful opportunity to get our sidewalks redone downtown and have the state pay for it. So this is a largely state-funded project, $26 million Mass Department of Transportation is funding. We have this great opportunity to redo the underground infrastructure, which is the city has to pay for doing that infrastructure, but it's far less cost because we're not paying for the excavation, we're not paying for the repaving.
So once they dig up the roads and replace the pipes.
And so I can't wait till the roads are dug up and we get to see what's under there. We have water and sewer pipes from the late 1800s.
Get a mining.
Yes, it's going to be fat. I'm sure we're going to find something unusual in there.
Hopefully it's not bodies.
Hopefully, yes. Don't ever. God, there's no wood around here. Yes.
No bodies. And then we're going to fast forward. There's a body.
So we get to redo this infrastructure that we have to do. We've already had some water main breaks on Main Street, which is really disruptive to businesses and to everybody. So we get to do that. We get to create more beautiful space for people. So, I think some of what we've kind of been talking about is this continuing change and evolution around how people use downtowns, right? And how people buy things, which is radically. How long have you owned this business?
This business, 7 years.
Okay, but you've been in business for
my whole life.
Your whole life, right?
I've owned 6 or 7 different businesses throughout the years.
So I mean, online retail has been an issue now for quite a few years, but certainly during the pandemic, it was sort of cemented, I think, in a way that is hard to come back from. Like how people buy things has changed.
Right.
We have to find other ways to bring people into our spaces and get them excited about being downtown. So we're creating more beautiful spots, more places for people to be that will be inviting, right? So we have the plaza in front of City Hall where people love to go and express themselves. And that is like something that we hold very dear in Northampton. That space is really hard and often people spill into the street. So we're creating more of a plaza in front of City Hall as sort of a free speech plaza there.
I hope that when we redid Pulaski Park, it looked phenomenal. Like it was great. But now it's not really being used for the purpose that I think that most people were intending. Like I have a lot of customers that live right above the apartments, that overlook the park.
Sure.
And they tell me all the time that there's needles in the park, there's people just hanging out, doing stuff, being disruptive. I'm not saying that's everyone, but that tends to be the underlying theme. So I'm just concerned, just as a citizen, that we beautify the city and everything's great, but it's not being used as we hope that it's intended to be used. How do we prevent another, what I think is happening in Pulaski Park, happening in other places throughout the city?
Well, I mean, I think the key is that we use those spaces, right? So during the summer, when we have a lot of programming in Pulaski Park and it's a live space where people come, then it's a very different feeling. So
we just got to use them all the time.
Yeah, I mean, but that's, and so we need to bring, we need to draw people to those spaces.
I hope that doesn't mean we're going to have a protest every day.
Well, I can't control that.
If you're creating a space where people are protesting.
I mean, let me tell you, it doesn't matter what space I create or don't create. People are going to come protest in Northampton because that's who we are, right? Yeah. We need to create more inviting spaces. And, outdoor dining has been wildly successful. People really love it. We're going to build that into our sidewalk infrastructure. Right. So you're not.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. The one thing I would say about the outdoor dining, now, if you look out there, you can see there's still 4 green barriers.
Yes.
And this is a little pet peeve, just as a business owner, that some of the reason why I think the town isn't always that friendly to business is that's a great example. So we have big barriers for people watching that were used to protect outdoor diners, which of course is a great idea. Mm-hmm. But those barriers, like the outdoor dining stopped about a week or 2 ago. And those outdoor barriers happen to be blocking a parking spot where I am the only business in town. There were people carry 50 pounds in and 50 pounds out. Yet somehow those barriers are taking up one of 2 spots sitting in front of my laundromat. And I don't understand why they've been there for that long or why they couldn't push those closer to the restaurant that was using them instead of in front of the laundromat. Because obviously, and parking, of course, as part of the redesign is a concern of mine, because if you look across the street, we have the parking lot. Mm-hmm. It's not always easy to find a spot in prime times, but generally throughout the day, it's not hard to find a spot in the parking lot. Mm-hmm. When we get rid of, about 58 or 60 parking spots downtown, that is going to get tougher for parking. Now, this is just specific to me as a laundromat. Obviously, people want to park as close in proximity to the laundromat as they possibly can because they're just carrying heavy stuff. And one of my concerns is we get rid of some parking downtown, it's going to be really tough to find spots in that lot across the street. And I don't know how to address that as one of the only businesses where heavy stuff is brought in and heavy stuff is brought out.
Well, everyone wants to park directly in front of where they have to go.
That is true.
Nature for sure.
That is true, but I will tell you that a lot of people double park here because they just want to unload their car and and move the heavy stuff.
Yes, it makes sense.
Right.
I will check in on those barriers, but
they're great. They're great neighbors, but it always and I love that they have the outdoor space and it helps them. Yeah. It's right in front of the laundromat, and I never understood why I'm not offered the same exact luxury as the restaurants. I would love to just have it reserved for parking.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll figure that out next year.
During outdoor dining season, the amount of spaces that we lose for outdoor dining are the amount of spaces that will be lost with the project. Okay. So it's going to be the same amount as during, the summer.
That actually, I didn't know that, and that is a good thing to know. So maybe it won't be as impactful as I'm fearing.
It shouldn't feel different than the summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that helps. So the part of the redesign that I question, the bike lanes. Here's my example. On King Street, near Florence Bank, where they redid that whole area and they put the bike lanes, I will tell you, and maybe it's just me, I have never seen one bicycle in those bike lanes. And when I've had that conversation with people that I know are bikers in this laundromat, they've said, oh, I bike down there, but I take the bike path. I'm concerned that we do the same thing downtown. And by the way, it is very confusing as a person that isn't really a biker and I drive. It always confuses me when there's a 50-foot section of bike lane and then it disappears. I am concerned that not only will people not really use it as much as we think they might, and there are bike lanes that feed into downtown, so people could take the bike lanes. Now we have parallel parking. People, I don't know if it's just this area, they don't know how to parallel park. And now we're going to put parallel parking on Main Street where there's only one lane in the future. Are we going to have to wait for these people to figure out how to parallel park? And what happens when they open a car door and a bike goes by? Like, so there's just a lot of things about the bike lane piece that I feel like I'd rather have it for parking or other things. Now, I may be alone in my opinion. They're not going to get used as much as we'd like to think. And it's just going to create a little more chaos with the parking situation, only because people are terrible at parallel parking. And then I will say the bikers that I know have not been the most considerate when it comes to slowing down near areas where there could be some concern.
A lot of Main Street already has parallel parking. So there's already a lot of parallel parking that's happening there.
Not well, though.
Well, you've never seen me parallel.
All right. You get your car, put it right there.
So these are protected bike lanes. So
Okay.
they're not going to be in conflict with someone trying to
So
park.
no door opening could.
No, so
Okay.
these are separated, protected bike lanes. You know, we're not looking out onto Main Street right now. My office does look out onto Main Street. I see bicyclists all the time. There are actually a lot of folks who commute through downtown or come to downtown by bike.
And you're sure they're not like, the mayor's looking, put a bike, put a bike.
That would be remarkable coordination. And I understand what you're saying about King Street. I do see bicyclists on that, but one of the
You're like a bike magnet.
well, I'm always looking. It's part of my job. You know, I'm always sort of surveying the situation and seeing how people use our space, right?
Why wouldn't they
Pleasant
just
Street.
lock their bike up at the end of the bike path and enjoy walking through town?
We want people to walk and bike more. We also do want people to stop and spend time downtown, of course.
And do their laundry.
And do their laundry.
During the construction, what kind of plans are there to help support the businesses? Because it will be a mess and it will be challenging. Seeing a decrease in the number of people coming, if that happens during construction, what is the city doing or planning to help counter that?
So we've actually been working on this for a couple of years now. We have what's called the POP campaign, stands for Pardon Our Progress. And that is started as a coalition of my office and the planning department. So, you know, the city, the Downtown Northampton Association, and the Chamber of Commerce. And since then, it's now grown. Thorns Marketplace is part of it. Other businesses are part of it. We have community members. We have a bunch of different stakeholders who come together. There are 4 different working groups, you know, mitigation, marketing, assisting businesses, communications. My office has gotten $150,000 in grants around marketing. So starting now for we are just finishing an RFP process for marketing for businesses now in downtown now through the project and after.
What kind of messaging would we say? Come visit downtown even though we're under construction, or?
Well, a really important thing to note is that, you know, construction's hard. I'm not going to say that it's not hard, but I think there's this misconception that all of Main Street's going to be dug up. It's not. So it's going to be done on one side of the work's going to be done on one side of the street and then the other side. So Main Street's going to be open for business during the entire project, and it's going to be done in sections. So on the side that's activated at the time, it'll be section by section. So
And you'll still have a flow of
and you will still have
traffic.
a flow of traffic. You will still have access to businesses. Our goal is, of course, to make it as easy as possible for all of the businesses and for people to be downtown. But, you know, I think the message is that Northampton's open for business during this entire project, and like let's support our businesses, right? Like this is a time that we turn out and show our love for our local businesses.
I wanted to thank you for coming into the Laundromat, spending time. I know you've got like a tough campaign schedule. It's almost over. You're in the home stretch.
Yes.
Best of luck with the election.
Thank you. Thanks
And-
so much. Appreciate
And
that.
I look forward to future cooperation as a local business owner. And there's a good chance you'll end up being the mayor again.
Well, I certainly hope so. Thank you so much. This has really been fun.
Thanks for coming. If you find these videos useful and you want to help me out, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Actually, maybe you can help me with
Sure,
it.
you bet. It has been an absolute pleasure to be with you on Laundry List, the best place for brainwashing.